53rd IATEFL conference. We're here in Liverpool. The sun keeps playing games on us, and if you hear the rain pelting on the windows, don't worry. We've got Gavin Dudeney with us.
Hurrah.
Once again, yay!
Hi.
It's been a year, I haven't spoken
I know,
to him.
I haven't slept for a year.
Right, yeah, okay. We're happy you did sleep. So, welcome.
Thank you very much.
I think you're one of those ELT professionals who has done absolutely everything there is to be done in IATEFL.
Oh, I wish, but this is my 20th IATEFL conference.
It is your 20, but you're not yet 20 years old.
No,
How is that
still,
possible?
no, well, you know, magic.
Magic, magic. So, Gavin, what have you been up to in this past year?
The past year, I've been doing quite a few things, quite a lot of training. So I've kind of cut back on my conferences, but I do go and do a lot of training. So I'm moving into spending more time with people, like 3 days or a week or whatever. Still running my MA module for Nile, which is twice a year online and once a year face-to-face in the summer in sunny Norwich.
Yeah, and busy, I can see.
Well, you know, quite fun. Doing a little bit more web design, because I hadn't done that for some years, but I'm doing quite a lot more of that. And the usual consultancy work. Nikki and I are starting on a second edition of Digital Literacies.
Which is one of my favorite books, I must say.
Thank you very much.
One of the things I would like to ask you about, we've been discussing the issue of technology in education. Sorry, but there are some of our colleagues who are out there teaching in classrooms where there is really no actual connection, or the students cannot have Wi-Fi connection, or the equipment is dated.
Yeah.
What about them? How are we going to apply all those innovative pedagogies, and are they on the, let's say, deprived end, or can we do anything to amend that?
Okay, so I think there's always going to be a part of the world that does just, or at least for the foreseeable future still, that doesn't have technology, and that's just a thing, and there's nothing you can really do about that. People have tried various projects with tablets and things like that, but you know, it takes time. The one thing we can say, I think, is that mobiles, and this is a little bit about my talk, connection to my talk, is that mobiles are the first technology that are pretty much everywhere. Not everyone has one, but they're the first technology that's kind of reached around the world. So that the mobile phone ownership statistics for last year, we're almost at 70% of the global population. And of those 70% who own mobile phones, around about something like 64% of them also have a data connection to the internet. So if you look at any other technology, computers, laptops and things, they've never had that kind of global penetration. So mobiles have done a couple of things. They've got everywhere, but they've also got to a point where they're quite cheap. And you know as well as I do, if you go to any country, developed or developing or whatever, when people have a bit of money, one of the first things they do is they'll buy a mobile phone. It may not be a brilliant one, but it'll be a mobile phone. So one thing is, I think the infrastructure, mobiles make a lot of sense. The other thing I think is that you can do a lot of things with mobile phones that don't require connectivity. We've got the camera, the video camera, audio recorder, all sorts of things in a little device. So I think if I was going to talk about the digital divide, or that part of the digital divide, I'd say mobile's got a good chance. But you know, if we're trying to think of every school in the world having a smart board, then it doesn't make any sense, because actually, before you spend the money on that, you need to spend it on making sure that kids arrive at school well fed, eat their lunch, their teachers are trained and well paid, and all that. So you know, technology is very much down the list of ways of spending money.
Also, I was wondering about today, about this year's trend. In the final plenary, we will be discussing the future trends in ELT. And we had a discussion that you kind of really put on fire the other day, because you mentioned on Facebook, the IATEFL Facebook group, that it would be foolish to attempt and make predictions about future trends in ELT. I'm really intrigued by this idea. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I can't remember who once said, but I think a Chinese philosopher said that it's a fool who predicts the future. Us. Sorry. That it's a fool who, I thought we were talking to each other, but there you go. So it's a fool who predicts the future. And in a way, I mean, we've had various degrees of development in technology. We've had lots of exciting things. But we're still in a period of great flux, I think, not necessarily in hardware. I think hardware is where it's at now, mobile, smartphones, small things. But in terms of software and things like, we hear, my talk is all about virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and augmented reality. Three things, I think, which are things that we're wasting time on. My prediction is that anyone who makes a prediction will probably be proved wrong within the next 10 years.
Because technology is going to surprise us, because we can't yet figure out what kind of effect this is going to have on us?
I think we want things, and so we will them to happen. And so if you look at publishing is a classic example of that. Publishers really wanted digital, but digital still hasn't happened for publishers.
And you mean fully digital, not just
or
the
just
whiteboard?
Digital, really. I mean, the publishers haven't moved very far in digital, and they're still not moving that far. And we had a prediction that printed course books were going to disappear within the next 5 years. That was 10 years ago. That hasn't happened. Why? Because the world isn't ready for it. So I think you can say what you hope for, and I think Kath Billsborough in that thread on IATEFL said she was going to talk about the things that she would like to happen. And that's fine, but that's not a prediction. That's a wish list.
It is.
And we all have wish lists.
Yeah.
But predictions, very tricky.
But Gavin, I know I ask you the same question every year. We do see the changes in IATEFL, and people like you, you've been around for 20 years, 20 different IATEFLs, 20 different ways of managing this huge teaching conference. What about that? Did you predict any of the trends? Did you see things? Did you predict this?
Probably not this. I think in the early days, Nikki and I were very good at, when things were moving less quickly, Nikki and I were very good at spotting trends, so things like mobile learning and things like that. It's a bit trickier now because I think we've reached a period of consolidation rather than development. So there are some fringe things like AI and VR and AR, but I don't think the core is changing very quickly.
Personally, as a teacher who is not, I don't really have a digital background in my education, I can't really see how all this is going to fit into my everyday teaching reality.
See, here's the thing, is that we all come to a conference like this and we sit in a little bubble, we have a lovely time, and we all talk about our wish lists and our desires and things we'd like to do. But you go anywhere in the world, and I mean anywhere, developing wherever you like, and the reality for most teachers is they have to go into a classroom and teach and do stuff. They're busy, they're overworked, they're underpaid, there's lots of paperwork. And AR and VR and AI things mean nothing to them, as they shouldn't really, because they're things that we love. We fall in love with these things. Most of them turn out to be useless, and teaching carries on.
And the problem is it takes quite a lot of time to see how this is going to feed into my students' learning.
Absolutely.
So,
but what you're doing here, you see, this is a classic case of technology that works for teaching. You've got a thing that videos things. You can do amazing stuff with video and kids. We've been doing video with students for 40 years. And this is just easier.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really easy to do. So there's a classic case of good technology, cheap technology, take it into a class, do it, have some fun, the kids learn something, they learn other skills, not just practicing their language, but editing and a little bit about sound and video and stuff. That's good technology use for me.
And also relating classroom learning with soft skills.
Absolutely.
Gavin, when is this session of yours and what is the title?
I'm glad you asked.
I wouldn't forget.
So 12:50 on Thursday in room 3A, which coincidentally is just over there.
Just across the bridge, yes.
The talk is called Disruption Ain't What It Used to Be. And in my talk I'm looking at, we've had two waves of technology disruption. The first one was mid-2000s, Web 2 and all that. And that was a pedagogical disruption. I think we were teachers excited about technology, exploring the possibilities, all good disruption. Second phase of disruption, the last 2-3 years, is an economical technology disruption. And it doesn't have the same impact or, in fact, the same practicalities for teachers. So I'm looking a little bit at three technologies, AR, VR, and AI and bots, and considering just how useless they are in ELT.
So don't forget, you need to sleep for the next year, but hopefully meet you here next year for yet another interview.
I hope so too. Thank you very much.
Best of luck. Thank you. Stay tuned and also follow us on our social media.
Bye.
Thank you.